welcome to Ash Wednesday's gathering from the land and Pastor Stephanie. And if you want to prepare for this service and you didn't receive ashes in a communion bag, you can still participate. You might just want to pause this video after I'm done explaining this part. But Christine Sine, S-I-N-E, is a contemplative person that I follow on social media, and she said that last year, because we weren't gathering for Palm Sunday due to COVID, we weren't able to have palms, and the palms that we use on Palm Sunday are what we burn for the ashes the following year, to Ash Wednesday. And so she had this really beautiful idea of burning a mask, not a cloth one, but maybe a KN95 if you have one. So if you can do that safely and you don't have ashes, or maybe that would actually be more meaningful to you than using the ashes that were given to you, I'm just going to invite you to go ahead and pause this video or stop it and take the time to do that, and then meet me back here. All right, I'm going to grab my ashes. All right, so what you're gonna need, you're getting the insider's secrets for Ash Wednesday from pastors all over the globe right now. So you're gonna need your ashes, you're gonna need a spoon, some oil, and a cup, and the dog. No, I'm just kidding. But they're helpful in many ways. Maybe not with the ashes. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna open your bag or put your ashes in a bowl. And this is a really hard. I might have to put. Okay, there we go. I got it. This, trust me, is just the first of many blunders that's gonna happen with creating ashes. These ashes are really nice because they are very fine, and that's never happened to me in 12 years of ministry. Usually there's like big, huge chunks of like sticks and stuff. I'm always like, where did this come from? And then I'm trying to put on people's heads, and it's a disaster. So anyway, the 1 year that I'm not going to be actually putting ashes on people, they're perfect. Go figure. All right, so anyway, now you're going to take your small spoon. A teaspoon is probably helpful if you're somebody who likes to measure things. So let's just fill it. I don't know. I don't have any good advice for this, if I'm being honest. What the goal is that it's like a chunky, well, it won't be chunky this year, but it's sort of like a batter. It's gooey. You want a gooey mix. Oops. All right. So I've filled my spoon with oil, and I'm just gonna, this is kind of like Bev's cinnamon roll class, but maybe not as fun. So, or not as delicious. All right. So I think I need a little bit more oil. I want to say, instead of when you say, oh, you can't mess this up, I think I'm just going to say, there's no way to do this right. You're going to mess it up no matter what. Okay, so do you see that? I don't know, but I'm going to put a little bit more oil on mine. Also, it's freezing out here, so that probably plays a role in this process for me. Okay, I think that's probably good. Tracy thinks I'm making something to eat. She's very excited. All right, I think I'm ready to go. Are you? All right, if you need more time, you can pause. I should have said this before, but don't use water. You don't want to use water. You want to use oil. Okay. And I'm one of those people who didn't listen to someone when they told me don't use water, and they were right. So just don't use water, use oil. Okay, so let's set those aside. And this Ash Wednesday service is going to be different. And so if you have kiddos in the house, you might want to just pause the video again. You're going to wonder if you're ever going to get through this. And they could grab some Legos or some coloring, anything where they're listening, but they're also doing something to calm themselves. Maybe that's not possible, which I totally get depending on when you're watching this. With Fiona, I've kind of trained her to listen to spiritual teachings and meditations by playing them before bed. So the good news is that she hears them. The bad news is I think I've conditioned her to immediately fall asleep on meditation and spiritual teachings. But what are you going to do? You do the best you can, and that pertains to this situation too. So this service is going to be different. It's going to be a mix of meditation and message, and the purpose is really to get us into the mindset of Lent, which is uncomfortable because of just the reality of facing suffering and death as a means to really understand and experience love and resurrection. And resurrection we can define in lots of different ways. And so part of the process of meditation and spiritual practices are connecting more deeply to those concepts in a way that they make sense to you. So when you hear words used in church or just in culture in general, and they kind of don't sit right with you, what we want to see that as is really an invitation to open up and explore. And I'm going to invite you to do that with me always, but especially in this service. And so I want to start by sharing this story. So as an associate pastor for 10 years before this, you get stuck doing things that no one else wants to do. And that worked for me because I'm creative and anyway. And so one year, this is maybe 8 years ago, I was doing a Thursday service, and it was a foot washing. We were doing it not in the main sanctuary, but in the fellowship hall. And this couple comes in, and they walk into the room, and they were like, are we in the right place? Because of course it's one of my services, and so like 2 people are there. And I'm like, yes. And they said, okay, we'll be right back. And they never came back. It was almost like they ran out of the building, got into their cars, and like sped away. Because they saw the basin set up, and they knew that we were going to do foot washing, and that was like way more than they signed up for. So this service could have that impact on you. And the nice thing is that I will not know if you run away. You can just pause the video, and maybe you'll come back later to it, or maybe not. But you are the boss. And so as far as you feel comfortable going with me in meditation, know that I honor that and that I respect that. Meditation is painful in many ways. The first is sometimes my feet will go to sleep and my back will hurt. Also, sometimes I feel like I'm having a heart attack, which I still need to Google and figure out what that means. But I think that's associated with the emotional pain of meditation. And I know I'm making a really great sales pitch for participating in this right now, but the real pain, I think, of meditation is sitting with all the stuff that you have been either spewing out and throwing at other people like snowballs or mud balls, or really just that emotional pain that we run from all day with busyness. So we kind of saturate our lives with schedules and to-do lists, and we fixate on that because it's so much easier to be upset about what we're not getting done than to sit with and be present to what's actually happening. And so with that amazing introduction, you might be on that plane flying away from me right now. So I'm just going to invite you to take a deep breath, and I like to start with just rolling my shoulders because that's where I hold all of my tension. And so just to kind of loosen it up. And you're welcome to close your eyes. I always do. And then I just begin with 3 deep breaths. And I breathe in through my nose. And I'm going to fill my lungs almost like they're a balloon that I'm just pumping air into until it's almost going to burst. And then I'm just going to exhale controlled and slowly. And every time I do this, I'm working to match the length of the inhale with the length of the exhale. And on the exhale is where I really take control to slow it down further. And what I'm doing is I'm signaling to my body that I'm safe. I'm pulling my brain out of that fight or flight response area that we kind of live most of our lives in. And I know that the thing that scares us most about meditation is this myth that we're supposed to just clear our minds and have no thoughts, and that if we can't accomplish that goal, then meditation isn't worthwhile and we're failures and it's not for us. And that's so sad. That's so American. Because meditation doesn't have a goal. Meditation is a practice, and it's a practice that never evolves into a professional sport. The purpose, if there is to be one in meditation, is to train our brains to notice when we're thinking, and then to offer ourselves a compassionate space to bring ourselves back into the preciousness of the moment. And this ties so much into our work of Lent, because Lent, more than giving something up, is really about seeing through the lens of mindfulness, which welcomes in the perishing of all things and the process of death that we are all participating in as living beings in this place. Pastors don't make a lot of money selling services based on living in the presence of death. That's just not something people are very excited about. And yet the fulfillment of the promise of God, which is really, to me, the ability to make meaning in suffering, is pretty much impossible to fulfill without the ability to sit, even if it's for a moment, in an awareness that we are dying. And because we have an awareness that we're dying, we have the ability to accept the gift of life. And so we're going to take our ashes now, and we're going to really just begin our time of meditation by applying the ashes. And so when in the church services, and you're going to have to really work at this, it's interesting because it's not super easy to apply, which is like a metaphor for how this actually feels inside of our beings. So you're going to just make a mess and be okay with that. This could be your kid's favorite part of the service, actually. And so when we apply these ashes in a church and you come forward, they're applied for you. And the pastor usually says something like, from ashes, from the earth we came. Oh man, why am I forgetting this? I've been out of the church too long. To to dust. We're going to die. That's kind of what they're saying. But they're saying it in a poetic, pretty way, that we're going to all return to dust. That we came from, that Adam is soil, that we are walking earth around with the breath of God breathed into us, and that we are going to be returned to that state of soil, of dust. And so you receive this, but today I think it's going to be even more powerful because you're making a choice to put that upon yourself. And so I'm just going to invite you to mark kind of where in the Indian tradition would be your third eye, or the eye of your heart, a third way of seeing. And so I have snow here. I should have told you to get a tissue or something. Maybe I'll put that in a slide at the beginning of it. So we're by applying the ashes to ourselves and remembering the mantra of from earth we came, to dust we shall return, we're really intentionally accepting a way of seeing in the world for the next 6 weeks. And the practice of meditation, even if you decide to do it once a week for 1 minute, is this practice of reminding yourself to see the world through this lens of death and to accept it, not as someone has died or someone is dying, and that's painful that we compartmentalize it that way, but to sit in the reality of we are all in the process of dying. And because we are all in the process of dying, life is finite and valuable, and we explore the deep inner life and we connect in this communion through creation to understand more fully what resurrection means for us, knowing that this physical life is limited. And so I'm just going to invite us into a moment of silence, and I'm going to guide you through this, because I'm not just going to drop you off the cliff of meditation, but so you might want to take a few more deep breaths. And what you want to try to do is just anchor yourself on either a sensation in your body. If it's painful, you want to adjust a little bit, but maybe it's the tingling in your hands, or the feeling of a strong back, the comfort of a soft belly, because when we're breathing in, we want to soften the belly with this breath and with this breath. And this practice of strong back and soft belly is this awareness that we can have a soft, open heart to the world, and yet we can hold strong boundaries and seek justice in the world simultaneously with our strong back. Or maybe you want to anchor yourselves on the sounds that are around you. And that can be the craziness in your house, the phone ringing. It doesn't have to be controlled and peaceful. The point is to anchor yourself on something that you're not controlling, to say yes to life. And the third thing you can anchor yourself on, if you'd like, is the feeling of your breath. And that might be the feeling of your breath through your nostrils, in your chest area, in your belly. But just begin to anchor yourself on something that's linked to this very moment. And what we're becoming open to is the aliveness of this moment. So often we sell our moments, our time, to plans or worries about the future, to regrets or laments about the past. But centered on the awareness of death and the nature of our beings, we sit still in this moment of just full awareness that this moment is the gift that has been given to us. You're gonna naturally drift into thoughts, and this is normal. I'd be worried about you if you said that wasn't happening. And every time that happens, you just want to gently imagine pulling that thought as if it were a helium balloon back into your heart space, letting it rest, deflating it, imagining it lying on the base of your heart space. You're holding it gently and with compassion, not shaming it or judging it or scolding it, but just letting it rest and anchoring yourself back in the gift of this moment. Sometimes I like to imagine myself melting into the space. And I always struggle with just that kind of anxiety in the chest area that doesn't want to let go. And sometimes it never goes away and I just sit through it. And this is the lesson for today, the Ash Wednesday lesson. Not to run from pain or suffering, but to train ourselves to sit with it and to hold it. To treat it with compassion and love, and to accept it as part of being alive. So I'm just going to invite you to do a scan of maybe your emotions, your body, and just to notice where that place of suffering might be for you. Fear or sadness, could be anxiety, dread. And to try to balance holding that suffering lightly, acknowledging it, but remaining anchored in whether that's your breath or the sounds or your sensations in your body. That we can hold both. That we don't have to let the suffering tell a story and carry us away from this moment of aliveness, but that we don't have to sacrifice the discomfort or the pain or the suffering in order to be present to this moment, that it can be a balance of both. That this balance is the practice of Lent. It is a way of seeing a third way, of acknowledging both life and death, and the relationship those two have together. And you might feel sad enough to cry. You might have to start working on your breathing again because it might become labored. When I'm feeling just really stuck in my suffering, sometimes I'll just start to kind of move a little bit, almost as if I'm being rocked by this moment, cradled in my belief in a higher power, in God's love. Sometimes I'll just lay my head on the ground. I'll touch my hand firmly against my heart. It's whatever feels necessary to you to stick with this moment. Sometimes I'll invite people who are no longer physically with us to shepherd me through this. I'll ask them to be present with me, to help me to stay open. A reminder that there truly is no separation between this world and the next, and the next, and the next. But that it requires an ability to stay still and be present, to connect with that which we can't see. So I'm just going to invite you to think of someone that you would like to sit with you. To imagine their face before you as if they're so happy to see you. They've received this invitation with such expectation. And in this moment, they offer their complete presence and love to you. Maybe you imagine them taking your hands, offering you an embrace. Maybe they whisper words into your ear that you've been craving to hear them say. I love you. I am with you. Maybe you rest your head on their shoulder. Breathe deep in the comfort of their presence. In the acceptance of death, we welcome the process of a whole new level of belonging. And in this moment, you belong to your beloved, and your beloved belongs to you. And perhaps you imagine them placing your face in their hands or kissing your forehead. A connection to that place of ashes printed as a sign that you are willing to enter into the suffering that leads to the light of connection beyond this world. And slowly you walk away, watching their image fade, but knowing that they remain with you. That you can come back to this place of openness anytime you need to. And that through practice, we can learn to live in this space. A space of full belonging. A space that holds both death and life, both darkness and light, both suffering and celebration. And together we breathe deep. One more time. We slowly open our eyes and take our hands, stretching, bringing them back. Rolling your shoulders maybe, smiling as a signal to your body that you are calm, that you are in an open heart space, that you trust beyond all judgment, that you just thank this space and yourself for doing something that maybe doesn't feel natural. And we end with an open posture to all that lies ahead of us, to all we hold from the past, and to the uncertainty and unpredictableness of each moment. May we welcome life wrapped in the reality of death, and may we know that we are greeted into a greater sense of belonging along the way. I wish you peace in your practice this Lenten season. May you know that you are loved in this world and from the next. Amen.
I took a drink of a long, dark night. Being drunk on doubt, I cursed the light. There's a certain love that I seem to recall here when I rise I fall. I had a dream, but it fell apart. A trusted friend who broke my heart. But there's a certain love that I seem to recall. Here when I rise, here when I fall. Dressed in rags and riches, it dances over the fallen bridges, along the gutters and down the ditches, across the valleys and mountain ridges. Certain love. I built a house, but the ground was sand. The rains came down and it could not stand. But there's a certain love when you've lost it all. Here when we rise, here when we fall. It's a certain love that I seem to recall. Here when I rise, here when we rise, here when I rise.